Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Raj here, and in today's video we are talking about technique that can help you learn faster and better. For all those who don't know me, I'm Raj and I'm currently a student admitted at the University of Manchester, and I'm hoping to start college this September. So today's video is definitely a different one than what the videos that I've been doing in the past. Today's video I'm talking about the techniques that really help if you want to learn new concepts better and faster. Now of course, while watching the video you'll definitely have the doubt that why am I the person to give you this knowledge. The thing is, I'm not, but this is a technique called the Feynman's Technique, which was made popular by Richard Feynman, and I've used it pretty much in all the areas of studies that I've done so far in my school, when I was in high school, and even for the SATs and all the other competitive exams that I've given. Richard Feynman, if you may or may not know, is one of the most brilliant scientists of all time, and definitely the most brilliant scientist in the 20th century. In 1965, Richard Feynman won the Nobel Prize in Physics for quantum electrodynamics, a theory that he himself devised. This theory was mainly popular because of the Feynman diagrams that you may or again may not have heard about. But again, if you want to know more about why he got the Nobel Prize, this is the book in which he talks about the very theory that got him the Nobel Prize. The book is called QED, and it is not a very tough book. He has actually written down it in layman's terms, and anyone who even has a very little background in physics, even high school level physics, should be able to understand this book. And that is the beauty of this thing, isn't it? Explaining the physics that got people the Nobel Prize is not an easy job. But Richard Feynman somehow, in just about 150 pages, has explained the exact theory that got him the Nobel Prize in physics. So Richard Feynman was definitely famous because of the way he taught. He was very famous for his lecture series called the Feynman Lectures on Physics, in which he used to give lectures to people who did not actually study physics.
In the meantime, Galileo was investigating the laws of motion. Incidentally, at the time of Kepler, the problem of what drove the planets around the sun was answered by some people by saying that there were angels behind here beating their wings and pushing the planet along around orbit. As we'll see, that answer is not very far from the truth. The only difference is that the angels sit in a different direction and the wings go in a different direction.
His lectures, all of them are available on YouTube, and they are amazing. Even if you're a person without any knowledge in physics, without any background in physics, just a little bit of mathematics here and there, you will be able to understand the lectures without any doubt. If you want to know more about this person, if you want to know more about Dr. Richard Feynman, I've put down a link in the description of my own blog where I have written an article about him. So please definitely check it out if you are curious. Now let's get back to the topic of the video. As A.F. Schumacher once said, any intelligent fool can make things bigger, more complex and more violent. It takes a touch of genius and a lot of courage to move in the opposite direction. So what this means is that any intelligent fool or any person can definitely make things more confusing for you. So for example, if you go to your teacher and you ask him to teach your topic, he can quite easily make the topic very confusing for you, and he might even leave you more confused than you were before. But it takes a touch of genius. That means you really need to understand something if you're going to be teaching it. If you do not understand something, you'll not be able to teach it. The Feynman technique was popularized by Richard Feynman, as I told you earlier, and this technique can make learning any topic quite fun actually, and quite easy as well at the same time. So there are mainly 3 steps that come when you're learning this topic. The first step is to pretend that you are teaching someone. So basically what you do in the first step is you take down a piece of paper and you write down the topic that you want to explain. In this example, I'm taking the Pythagoras theorem because it is quite easy, and no matter what your background, you'll be able to understand this theorem. So this is just for the sake of simplicity. So take Pythagoras theorem for example and write down the topic at the top. Once you've written down the topic, start explaining this stuff in your own words. Don't keep your textbook away. As I'm assuming here that you have already studied Pythagoras theorem and you want to refresh and you want to get it deeper in your mind, what you've learned. So keep your books away and start explaining as if you're explaining to a 6th grader. Now this is a very important step. Because you might as well explain it well to your friend, or you might explain it well to a person who already has some knowledge of Pythagoras theorem. Pretend that you're teaching it to a 6th grader who has no idea what the hell Pythagoras theorem is. So teach as if the person in front of you, the hypothetical person in front of you, has no knowledge whatsoever of the theorem. So while doing it, make sure that the vocabulary that you use is quite simple and you're not using confusing terms. Because the thing is, if you cannot explain what you've understood, if you cannot break down tougher language into a simpler language, into simpler terms, I'm sorry to say this, but you have not understood it. So explain it in as simple words as you possibly can. While doing this, also it is a very good idea to use realistic examples that you can yourself relate to. If not, you can of course use the examples given in the book, but this should be something that you can relate to and that you can really understand. So use realistic examples. Realistic is a very important word over here. The second step is to identify the gaps in your explanation. That is to see if while explaining you had problems in some areas of the theory that you're trying to explain yourself. Again, Richard Feynman said that the first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. Of course, you're the easiest person to fool because you might think that you know the topic. You might go over it once, you might write it down on the page once, and you might even be struggling in some parts. But at the same time, you might think that, okay, I struggle right now, but now I've understood it and I will not forget it. But then again, you're wrong. Identify the gaps in your explanation and go back to the source material and go back to the place where you actually learned it and do it again. And then repeat the process again. The Feynman technique. Repeat it again. And when you are able to explain it to a 6th grader or explain it to this hypothetical person without stammering or without having any doubts, that is when you've understood it. The third step is to organize and simplify. And for example, you've taken down 100 of these notes, you've used hundreds of these pages trying to explain the hypothetical person, and you have a bundle of papers. So do one thing and just organize them, because while you're revising, the best place to be revising this is going to be these notes, not the source material. Because in these notes, you've written it in your own words and not in the words of the author, or not in the words of the textbook. You have written it in your own words, and it is a 100% guarantee that you are going to understand what you've written. Richard Feynman also once said that there's a huge difference between knowing the name of something, or knowing the name of a person, and actually knowing that person and actually knowing that thing is quite different.
But my father had already taught me about the names of birds. We walked and he says, that's a brown-throated thrush. He says, know what the name of that bird is? A brown-throated thrush. In German, it's called a Flügelflügel. In Chinese, it's called a Qinglongtong. In Japanese, a Tahatahara, and so on. And when you know all the names in every language of that bird, you know nothing, but absolutely nothing about the bird. Then we would go on and talk about the pecking and the feathers. So I had learned already that names don't constitute knowledge.
So yeah, I guess the Feynman technique was pretty much clear to you. Now, if you also want to know more and more about the person that I've talked about so much in this video, if you want to know more about Richard Feynman, you should definitely check out this book as well. Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. And it's written by Mr. Feynman himself. So it is not a science book. It has nothing to do with science. It indeed has to do with his life. So in this book, he talks about himself and his life while doing physics. So that's it from my end. I hope that today's video was helpful, and I'm sure that if you're using the Feynman technique in your life, you'll be able to understand things way deeper and way better than you usually have. So thank you so much for watching the video. I'll be back with another video very soon. Stay tuned.